core data. And again, that's what we're going to be doing for the next couple weeks, right? And with that, we're going to be building on top of the app that we've already started, our tasks app. And so please, if you haven't already, go ahead and open that up. And if you need it, I believe I sent it. Yeah, if you need to download like a finished version of what we had last time, you can look on Slack. From a couple days ago, I dropped the zip there that has the project in it. So go ahead and download that if you don't have it, but we are going to be building from where we left off last time, okay? So tonight's objectives, our key takeaways, it's a much smaller list than last time, but let me go through it with you. Let's see, in Slack here. Okay, so our learning objectives for tonight is we want to learn to use a lightweight migration to migrate older core data stores to a newer version, okay? So if we ever decide to make any changes to our core data objects, we need to run a migration, right? So that any objects that have already been created can follow that same data model, right? And so you should have read in the training kit material about in order to do a lightweight migration, there are a couple of requirements, namely that like the new properties that you add need to be optional, or if they're not optional, then they need to have a default value so that everything that's already been created in core data can have like a specified value for that new property or attribute that you add. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to do lightweight migration. We're going to talk about how to use an NS fetched results controller to create a table view populated with core data objects. And then we're going to talk about, it's not in here, but we're going to talk about how to use NS predicate to fetch objects matching a specific criteria. Okay. So let me show you what our finished app is going to look like at the end of today and show you some of the features that we're going to add here. So go ahead and move this. Come on, buddy. Okay, cool. So we've got our task just like last time. You know, we added the ability to add tasks and to mark them complete, and then we're saving those into core data, okay? So you can see that I actually have a section header
Johnny,
here.
You're not sharing your screen.
Oh, hello. Hello. Sorry, I was there talking about all those learning objectives without showing them. My bad. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, cool. Sharing my screen now. Can you guys see it? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Cool. All right, so this is going to be what the app is going to look like at the end of tonight. Okay, so you can see I've actually got a section header here marking a task as critical. Okay, so if I go to the plus button, another thing that we're going to add is this segmented picker here that allows you to select a priority for the task. Okay, so low, normal, high, and critical are going to be our different priorities. Okay, so if I create a low priority task here, say this is a low priority and save it, we see now we have two separate sections, right? We've got critical and we've got normal, okay? And what I can do if I want is another piece of functionality that we're going to add, besides having a new priority property and adding the priority segmented picker, is now we can actually open up to a task and edit it, which we couldn't do previous. Okay, so you can see we've actually got the disclosure indicator here. This is called the disclosure indicator, meaning that like if you tap this, it's going to take you somewhere. So we see that that actually takes us to the detail so that we can see our task here. So low priority task complete, normal, okay? And actually nothing in here is tappable unless we go to edit mode, okay? So we want to avoid the user making accidental changes. So we can tap on edit here. I can make some change, blah, blah, blah. I can set the priority, add more notes, and then hit done. Okay, and then we go back to our tasks list and we see that now, oh, did I mark this as, sorry, low priority. Low priority, done. back to tasks. Okay, so low priority task. So we're giving ourselves a lot more of an ability to update our tasks, right? Previously we made it, and that the only way that we could deal with it was delete it and remake it again. So we're going to add that functionality to be able to edit it as well. Okay, any questions about the roadmap or what we're trying to get done tonight? Cool. All right. So let me go ahead then. Okay. And let's open up our project and let's go to our XC data model file. Okay. Because we need to add a new property here. Okay. Okay. And because we're going to add a new property, I want to actually add a new model version is what we call it. Okay. So the way that we can add a new version is if I go to the editor menu up top, and then we're going to go to add model version. Okay, add model version. So go ahead and click on that. Okay, and it's just going to give it the version name of the previous version, but then it's going to up the number to 2. Okay, so we do want this to be based on the tasks model, and we'll say version name is tasks 2 is good. And let's go ahead and do finish. Okay. And now you'll see that our XC data model, instead of it just being one file that we can click, it's almost like it's a folder that contains our original tasks data model and then our tasks 2 data model, which are identical at this point. Okay. Okay, did everyone get that? Did we all get the new model version? So editor, add model version, and then just okay. Okay, so if you've got that, you can see that if you look at the tasks.xc data model, there's a little green check mark, and that's saying, hey, this is like the current model version that your app is set up to use, okay? So what we want to do is we actually want to start using our tasks2 data model, okay? So if you have one of these selected here, okay, but go ahead and just select the tasks2 XC data model. Open up in the right pane here where we've got our little helpers here. Let's open up the identity inspector, or the file inspector, I guess is what it's called here. So look at the file inspector and go down to model version. Okay, and you can see that the current is set to tasks. Okay, let's go ahead and set this to tasks 2. Okay, so it's gonna, so next time we run the app, it knows what model version to set up with our core data model. Okay, so we want to set that to tasks 2 as our current model version. Okay, so tasks and task 2 aren't any different right now, so let's go ahead and let's update that. Okay, so with your tasks 2 data model selected, let's go ahead and add a new attribute for our priority. Okay, so we've got our priority, and the type, we're just going to have it be represented as a string. So the low, what did we have? We had low critical, or was it normal?
Low, normal,
yeah, low, normal,
critical,
high, and then critical.
and high.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so we'll just have each of those be represented by a string. Okay. Well, we don't want to have kind of weird tasks that don't have a priority. Okay. So we want to make sure, so we're going to click on the data model inspector, the one on the far right here, with our priority attribute selected. And we're going to set this to be a non-optional. Okay, so every task is required to have a priority. But in order for me to be able to run a migration, because if you think, if I've already created like 10 tasks, none of those have a priority. So if I were to start a data, if I were to launch up my data model, and then it would try to run the migration, and it would say, hey, we have all of these things in core data that don't have a priority assigned to them, then we would crash or something would go wrong, right? The data would be corrupt, okay? If I'm stating that this is non-optional because I have a bunch of tasks that don't have a priority value, okay? But I do want this to be non-optional because I want it to be required. So in order to successfully run a lightweight migration, I need to give it a default value, okay? So it needs to know what default value should I assign to everything that's already in core data, okay? What priority should I give to each of those when I run this initial migration? So let's go ahead and give it a default value, and we'll set this to be normal, okay? Okay, so every task that's already been created when we run the migration is going to be given a priority of normal. Okay, any questions about that or why we had to do that?
I guess just a clarification so I understand. So let's, for example, the first version of this that we did on Monday or Tuesday, let's say it's been on the App Store for a while, people have been using it, they've been creating tasks, and then you're saying that, like, if we were to push an update allowing them to change and edit things, this is the purpose?
So not necessarily to change and edit things, but we're sort of adding this like built-in functionality or this built-in attribute that previously tasks were never given a priority, right?
Right. Okay.
But then I'm adding more features to my app and I'm saying, okay, well actually like a better implementation of this tasks app is if the user can define a priority, okay? Well, I have to be able to run a migration so that all of the stuff that they've already created can be given a priority, okay? And so Zach, you asked, can you define a migration? And migration is sort of this kind of like in between of like, you've got one set of objects and you need to add a specific value to one of their properties next time the app is run. So we're sort of gonna run those through this little migration generator thing that's going to go through each one of those tasks that already exists and give a value to the priority property, okay? Because they previously didn't have priority, but now in my next version of my app or whatnot, I want each task to have a priority. So I have to migrate to the new database, and while migrating, I need to give each of those old managed objects the priority property with the default value. Okay, does that make sense?
So basically the purpose, as opposed to just rewriting into tasks, the original task 2, it's almost like a version control effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So we select a model version because I'm adding a new property, right? And so I need to sort of have a next version that has my new property that I want.
Right. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Johnny, would this version live on top of the original version that we did? Like it's integrating into it?
So it's based off of the original version. So when we went to the new model version, so if I go to editor here and go to add model version, you can see that it's based on a specific model. So it sort of takes that and it's not using it like for reference, but it's creating a copy of that model because it's based on that model, but then we're adding extra things to it.
So if for some reason you totally messed something up in there and you released it, whatever, would you be able to roll it back to the previous version by basically eliminating the version name that you just created?
Yeah, if you like remove specific properties from a model, then when core data runs, it will delete properties that are no longer needed or that are no longer part of the model. But yeah, as far as I mean, rolling stuff back is going to be a little bit more confusing than just simply that. But
oh, fair enough. Okay.
Okay.
Is there a reason you wouldn't just update tasks 1 instead of create a new one?
Yeah, because so the original tasks model didn't have a priority. So everything that has already been created using the tasks model tasks model version 1 would no longer, like, they can't, when they were created, a priority didn't exist. And so we have to create a migration so that we can add a priority later thereafter.
So what would happen if you just put the priority in the first one? When you run the app, what would happen?
Well, if you had selected that your model version that you want to use is a priority, I mean, lots of different things can happen, but most likely you'd run into a crash down the road because you'd have objects that are like sort of the same type, but not really. And so, yeah, so you want to be sure that when you add new things to it, so that everything can have a similar value, you want to run the migration.
Yeah, I think the confusion is stemming from, this is something that we assume has already been released and people are already using. So when you're making the adjustment, you want to make it compatible backwards as well, as opposed to thinking of it as, okay, we're building this still and it has not yet released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So that, yeah, the idea behind this is that you've released, people have actually already created task objects. And so you don't want to corrupt that data. You want to be able to keep that data, but with your latest model version. Yeah, that's a good call out. So Bowden asked, do we always need to give a default value? So you have to give a default value if the attribute that you're adding is non-optional, okay? So if the attribute that you add is optional, then the default value will be nil, and that's totally fine. But because we're adding priority and because priority is non-optional, we have to give it a default value so that when it runs the migration, all of the tasks that already exist inside the database can run with, can be given a priority.
But what if it's like something like an identifier?
What if it's something like an identifier?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you go, I'm trying to think if there is a, identifier here. Yeah, that's a good question. That one would probably require,
I think it's because one was generated within a task and convenience file.
yeah, but if we didn't initially have an identifier and we wanted to run the migration, is his question, that would be a little bit more complex. We'd probably need to do like a written migration to assign everything thereafter. So that would be a little bit more complex. So luckily with ours, it's pretty easy to add a default value, but as far as an identifier, you'd need to probably write down some code to run the migration. That's interesting that they don't, I mean, because a UUID needs to be unique. So I'm surprised that they don't have just like a default value, just generate a new UUID. That's a bit surprising to me, but that's a good question. Okay, all good questions. Any other questions about the migration?
I have a question though. Would like junior developer would do migration for the company?
Depends on where you work. But yeah, probably not really. And you know, some people at day one, like way smarter than me, have set up something that like I can add attributes to our core data models, and I don't have to go and change the version number. So again, senior developers have set up something that like they run the migration automatically behind the scenes. So I can just go in and I can add an attribute and it runs fine and it automatically migrates. So hopefully you'll be in like a similar scenario that you wouldn't necessarily, like going in, you wouldn't have to be like, okay, now I've got to do a new model version. But hopefully, like once you actually start using core data more for like your own apps and whatnot, you'll feel pretty comfortable with how to run a migration.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, we can always check. So just out of curiosity, if I go back to my tasks XC data model, well, actually, let me go back to, come on. Like if I set my model version back to tasks and I added a priority here, type string, and give it default value normal. Run this. Yeah, so that one, I guess I would have expected it to crash when I ran the model because I added a new property to it. But you will have issues in the future and so we do still have 2 tasks here that don't have a priority, and so the migration allows us to directly like add priorities and default values to those when moving from one to the other. So yeah, you may not run into like an initial crash here loading it up, but again, your data is always going to be like a little bit off because those tasks that already existed do not have a value set for a specific property. Okay, I'm going to get rid of priority here. And then let's make sure that tasks 2 is set as our model here. Okay, so then the migration should have run, so each of these should have a priority now. Okay, other questions about migrations? Okay, cool. All right, so let's go now. And so remember when we set all this up, we just have that normal initializer that's like in it with context. And so in our task plus convenience file, we created a convenience initializer in order to help us more easily create a task object, okay? Well, now we've added a new property. We want to update our convenience initializer to reflect that, okay? Had to happen sometime, guys. Just so happened that he happened to be naked, which he's not always naked, but bath time, so. All right, cool. So yeah, we want our convenience initializer here to reflect our new priority property, okay? So let's go ahead then, and if you hop over to your task plus convenience here, we're gonna add, after this complete parameter here, let's go ahead and add a priority parameter, okay? So priority, and generally here, because priority, even though it is a string, we want to have like a defined set of possible priorities, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an enum, a string enum, that will allow me to sort of kind of hone in on what are the actual possible values, okay? So let's add an enum here called task priority, Okay, and it's going to be of type string. Okay, let's go ahead and do case low, case normal, case high, and case critical. Okay, so I'm just giving like a predefined set of strings that priority can possibly be. Okay, and so now for our priority for our type, we're going to set that to be task priority. Okay, and then we'll also give it a default value in the initializer, dot normal. Okay, that way if I want to create a task, but I don't necessarily want to give it a priority, I don't have to. I will just have a default value of normal.
Are we gonna give them a raw value as well?
So the raw value is that actual word. So low, normal, high, and critical. The raw value is literally low, normal, high, and critical. Like if you wanted to, you could give it a raw value of like capital low. But because in our model, the default value is all lowercase, I'm just gonna leave those as is. Okay. And so then let's go ahead and say self dot priority. And if you don't see priority, just do like a command B to build. And yeah, self dot priority equals priority. Oh, in this case, yeah, we do need to say raw value.
I have a question. Do we need to change the extension name?
No, you don't. The type is still the same. The model version is just an iteration on the type, but the name of our entity is still task. Right? If we look over here, the entity name is still task. So we don't need to change the name of the extension.
I have an error. It says undeclared type task.
Up here it does? Even after you do command B?
Yeah, it did that to me, and I end up having to close out Xcode and refire up. It's a little bug, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's unexpected. Yeah, I wouldn't expect that to change. Hey.
No, this is for you.
Okay, thank you. I need you to run upstairs.
Put it on your head.
Okay, I'll put it on my head. Run upstairs. Okay. Lock the door next time. It's so much harder once you have two kids because my wife is with the baby now. And so he's just running rogue around the house, apparently. Okay.
Hey, Johnny.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm getting an error saying that I have no member priority, even though I have it in task 2.
If you click on your tasks too, and then you go to the model version.
Nope. Thanks, sir.
Okay. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're using that model version. All right, we good to move on from the migration? Okay, so let's go ahead and update our UI now so that it will allow us to add a priority. So we're gonna hop over to our main.storyboard here. Okay, and let's go ahead and add a new object. We're gonna search for segmented control. Okay, segmented control. And if you click and drag, you can see we've got a stack view in here. right? So if you look at that blue line, that's going to be where it's going to drop the segmented control. Okay, so let's drop the segmented control right above our notes. Okay, it's right above our notes here. Okay.
Dad, this is for you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you wear it?
Yeah, I'll wear it.
And this is all mine.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead then, and we've got our segmented control added here. Okay, and let's also give our, let's put a label above our segmented control. And so we've already got a label here that looks and feels the way that we want it to. So let's create a copy of it. So I'm gonna just option click. Okay, option click, and I'm just gonna drag right above the already existing one. Okay. And we can drag it out of that stack view if we want. And go ahead and put it above your segmented control here. Okay, so you can just kind of rearrange where these are in their individual stacks and whatnot. Okay, well, we don't want this to say notes anymore. Let's go ahead and update it to say priority. Okay, and then let's go ahead and configure our segmented control. Okay, so if you click on your segmented control and go to the attribute inspector, you can see that we have a number of segments. Okay, so we know that we're going to want to have 4 priorities for low, normal, high, and critical. So let's bump that up to 4. Okay, and then we can go through each segment here. Okay, we can go through each segment and we can set what the title should be. Okay, so for segment 0, we want to set this to be low. Okay, for segment 1, we want this to be normal. Okay, segment 2, we're going to set to be high. And then segment 3, we're going to set to be critical. You can see that it defaults to selecting the first segment. Okay, so let's go ahead and update that. If we go to segment 0, you can see that for the behavior, it has the selected checked for segment 0. So let's go ahead and uncheck that. Okay, and instead, let's go ahead and go to our normal segment and we'll set that to selected. Okay, so that's going to be the default selection. As soon as they open this up, it's going to have the default normal selected.
Hey, Johnny, what does the behavior enabled do next to the selected?
Yeah, so the enable just means, is this a valid option? Can it be selected? And so there may be some cases where, not necessarily in this app, but you have a segmented picker that you want to like disable some of the segments based on a certain condition. So that would be just setting the default enabled to false, but we want all of these to be enabled. So
Is that like once that's enabled, it would just be at default the whole time until we
until we
it out.
update it in code. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Okay. So we've got our segmented picker. So let's go ahead and let's open up our create task view controller. Okay, create task view controller. And we're going to create an outlet from our segmented control here. Okay, and let's go ahead and call this our priority segmented control. And then hit connect. Okay, awesome. Any questions about the segmented picker or the segmented control?
How many segments can you create? Are you limited in the amount?
I don't know what the exact limit is, but your screen size is only going to be so big, so there needs to be enough space that you can actually tap on it, right? So I mean, you can check and see how many segments you can get up in here. I mean, it looks like there's not really a limit, but you don't want to put too many things in there, otherwise it will be too hard to select. So
Can you also make that in the vertical segment? Or
yeah, segments don't wrap like that. They're just a single horizontal bar.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so we don't need to create an IB outlet for when the segment is changed, at least in our case, because we only care what is the value of the segment when the user saves. And so as long as we've got an outlet to the segmented control, that's all that we need, okay? I don't need to do anything right when they actually select it, so. Okay, so we're gonna hang out here in our create task view controller, okay? And we're gonna update our save method, right? Because now when we save, we want to be sure to include our priority, okay? So after our notes here, let's go ahead and let's grab our priority index, okay? So segmented controls are 0 indexed, so we access 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Is going to be the selected segment, okay? So the priority index is going to be equal to our priority segmented control dot selected segment index, okay? So that's only gonna give us a number 0, 1, 2, or 3. That's not gonna give us an actual priority, okay? So what we want now is if we hop back over to our task plus convenience, we're gonna make task priority conform to a protocol called case iterable, okay? And a case iterable protocol is just a type that provides a collection of all of its values, okay? So because this enum has a few different cases in it, if I want to be able to have sort of an array of each one of those cases, I want to make it conform to case iterable, okay? Okay, so then what that allows me to do is back in our task or create task view controller, I can say let priority equal task priority dot all cases, okay? So that's going to be an array that contains all of the cases, and we're going to pass in our priority index, okay? So this only makes sense as long as your segmented, as long as the order of the elements in your segmented control are equal, is the same order as the elements inside of your enumeration, okay? So we're just saying, hey, access the string from my priority enum at this index, okay? And then I can use that priority and I can pass it in here. So we'll do priority.
So in essence, that just cleans up the code for later because you don't have to use that. We can use a longer version.
You're talking about this?
Yes.
Yeah, it just makes it, it's just a way easier way of doing it. There's certainly other ways to do it, but making it case iterable so that you have a collection of all of the actual possible cases is the easiest way. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it at this point. Okay, so you should be able to hit the plus icon. Okay, and now we've got our priority picker here. Okay, high priority task. You can set this to high. This is a high priority. And hit save. Okay, we don't have anything in the UI that's actually showing if that's a high priority or not. But you should be able to get that segmented picker and select a value and hit save. Okay, so if you're caught up to this point, let's have you raise your little Zoom hand.
Hey, Johnny, are we supposed to see a high, low
No,
priority on there?
not yet. No, we're going to do that
Oh.
next. Yeah, so there's nothing that's visually telling you that it has a priority, but as long as you've set it up here in this save method, it should have it.
Okay, good to go.
So we'll see that once we update our UI to actually use that priority.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So let's hop on over to our tasks table view controller, okay? And you'll remember last time, right now our tasks are just being stored. We have this tasks array that does a fetch request every time we try to access it, okay? Remember, this is horribly inefficient. You don't want to do that, especially if you had like 1,000 tasks. If every single time you tried to access the value of tasks, it was having to refetch those, that would be really bad, okay? So one awesome thing about Core Data is they have what's called a fetched results controller. Okay, a fetched results controller manages all of the items inside of Core Data. Okay, and then you can use a fetched results controller to sort of lay out your items in a table view or a collection view. Okay, so it's sort of viewing and watching all of the items in Core Data and watching when an item has been added or deleted or inserted or whatnot, okay? So let's go ahead and let's just remove this tasks computed property entirely, okay? And you can actually remove the note as well because we're gonna do a better way, okay? Okay, and instead here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a lazy variable, okay? Does anybody remember what the lazy prefix there does? So lazy variable just means that the property, like the value of that property will not be created until it's actually needed or used, okay? So it's sort of a placeholder of like what could be until it's called, right? So we don't allocate memory unnecessarily, okay? So we're gonna say lazy var fetched results controller, okay, of type ns fetched results controller, okay? And the type of objects that this fetched results controller is gonna manage is type task, okay? We want this to be a stored property. So we're gonna have the equal sign, opening and closing brace, and then open closing parentheses. Okay. So let's go ahead and then here we're gonna create our fetch request, okay? That's gonna be an ns fetch request of type task, okay? And we're gonna say task.fetch request. So fetch all of the items of type task. Okay. Another awesome thing about these fetch requests that we didn't talk about last time is that you can actually fetch them and sort them, okay? So we're going to do fetch request dot sort descriptors. Okay. How do you want to sort the items as they are fetched? And this is going to be equal to ns sort descriptor, and it's an array of sort descriptors. Okay. So ns sort descriptor. Okay. And then we're going to do key and then ascending. Okay. So the key is the name of the attribute that you want to sort by. So in our case, what do we want to sort by?
Priority.
Priority, right? So this needs to match the exact casing of your core data attribute. Okay, so priority, and then ascending we'll set to true. Okay, which in the case of a string is just going to be alphabetically. Okay. Okay, let's add another sort descriptor here. Okay, I'll make this a little bit easier to read. Let's add another sort descriptor. Okay, and we want to then sort each one of those by their name, right? And then we'll say true as well. Okay, so we first want to sort by priority, and then inside of each of those individual priorities, we want to sort by the name. Okay, does anyone here have any experience with SQLite? Writing SQL queries? No. Okay, that's okay. You don't need to, just curious. All right, so we've set up our sort descriptors. So when we fetch all of our tasks, we're going to sort them, okay, by priority and then by name. Okay, so let's grab our managed object context. So core data stack dot shared dot main context. Okay, and now let's create our fetched results controller. So let frc equal ns fetched results controller. And we're going to initialize this with our fetch request, with our context, which I guess is our MOC here. And now it's asking section name key path. Okay. So up to this point, I believe we've never created a table view that had more than one section. Okay. But now this is saying, hey, how do you want to like sort of group these or separate these? Do you have a section name key path? Do you want to create different sections? Okay, so what do you think our section name key path is? How do we want to separate our tasks?
The raw value of the priority enum.
Yeah, so just by its priority, right? Because core data doesn't know anything about the enum. It just knows that priority is a string. But because we're using an enum to actually create those, all of those priorities are automatically going to be the values of the enum, because there's no way of creating a priority that's any different than what our enum has. So, but yeah, you're right. Okay, and then cache name, we're not going to do any caching, so you can go ahead and just set that to no. Okay, so now let's go ahead and we're going to set ourselves as the delegate for the fetched results controller. Okay, and it's okay if there's an error for now, it's fine. Okay, and then we actually need to call perform fetch on the fetched results controller. Okay, so perform fetch. And then we're going to return our fetched results controller.
Is there a way to do it without a bang operator on that try?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we do like a do catch block?
Yeah. Let's move this up here. Call try. Perform fetch, and then in the catch, you could do like an ns log error fetching task objects. something like that if you don't want to use the Bing operator. Okay, and actually let's comment out this delegate thing because I don't want to talk about it yet. We'll come back to it. Okay, so right now if you do a Command B, we're going to see that the build failed, and that's because we removed our tasks array. It no longer exists, right? So, but we do have our fetch results controller, which should be managing all of our core data objects, okay? So let's go ahead and let's fix these errors that we have, okay? But one thing that I do want to add here that we haven't done before is the number of sections, okay? Because remember, now we're gonna start sectioning off the items by their priority, okay? So for number of sections, let's go ahead and return our fetch results controller dot sections dot count, okay? And that is an optional value, so we'll nil coalesce it with a 1. Okay, so for number of rows, well, this is going to depend on how many rows are in each section from the fetch results controller. So here we're going to return fetch results controller dot sections, okay? And then how do we access the specific index of a section? Okay, sections is just an array, right?
The index path.
Yeah,
right?
so we're going to use the index path using subscript notation, right? So we're going to say sections and pass in our section here, right? Because we have a section parameter. So we're saying go to the fetch results controller, go to the array of sections, and then inside of this section, how many objects does that contain? So dot number of objects. How many objects are in that section of the fetch results controller? That's how many rows I want to have in this section. Okay, and then we'll nil coalesce this with a 0 here because that's optional. Okay, any questions about either of these? Number of sections, number of rows. Okay, so think of this. So a fetch results controller has a section, a sections property. So think of the sections property as an array of arrays, okay? So it contains multiple sections, and in each section there are a number of objects. So in order to get to the number of objects, I need to access a section and then get the number of objects in said section. Okay, so now down here, let's go ahead and we want to access the task at our fetch results controller, okay, dot object at index path, okay. Okay, so think of like a fetch results controller as sort of a backend for like a table view or a collection view, right? The way that a fetch results controller stores its data is in sections and the number of objects in each section. So it's easy for us to access an object at an index path because the backend of a fetch results controller is set up just like a table view or a collection view with index paths, with sections and with number of objects. Okay. Let's comment out the deletion stuff for now, because I want to come back to it in a sec. Okay, but at this point we should be able to run. And oh, we're missing one thing. Sorry. Okay. So after our cell for row at here, what we want to do is we need to give each section a title. okay, so that it knows when it separates out the section, what's the title of each of those sections. So we're going to do title for header in section. Okay. So if you just search title for header in section. So let's go ahead and let's get the section info from our fetch results controller. So guard let section info equal fetched results controller dot sections. Okay, and we want to access the section in our current iteration. Otherwise, we're going to return nil. Okay, so this section info, what it's saying is it's saying, remember up here when we created our fetch results controller, we said that the section name key path is priority. Okay, so the section info is going to give us a list of all of the different possible priorities that we have. Okay, so we're saying let section info equal fetch results controller dot sections at a given section, right? Because it's already grouped these by their priority. So I'm just getting that directly from the fetch results controller. And so then let's go ahead and return section info dot name dot capitalized. And at this point, if you run it, you should see you have the section headers here. Critical, high, low. Okay. Give you guys a minute to catch up, but do you guys have any questions about that?
Did we ever uncomment the delegate?
No, we have not yet. Well, I'm going to go through the fetch results controller delegate stuff after your break. So yeah, leave that commented out.
I'm not sure if this is expected behavior, but I just tried adding a new task right now and it's not showing.
Yep, that's expected because the fetch results controller hasn't been set up as the delegate yet, so it doesn't know when an object has been added.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll come back to that. All right, let's go ahead and take 5. And then we'll continue talking about our fetch results controller.
Johnny, if my sections only contain the first letter of the raw value or of the enum, like critical is just C, is that like a constraint issue?
No, that's, yeah, because sections shouldn't have constraints. So you're saying in your actual table view, like where you've got these section headers, it just says C, H, and L?
Exactly, yeah.
And you have this section info.name.capitalized?
Trying to find that. I do not. Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Hey, Johnny, can you scroll up a little bit? I kind of fell a little bit behind.
Sure, where do you need me to go?
I think it's right after the lazy fetch results controller. For some reason, it started giving me an error, but I kind of pushed forward from there. And then I lost you after you created the override function for number of sections. And then I think it's number of rows that I'm missing.
Right here?
Yes, that's that. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey Johnny, how do you get yours to come up? Because every single time I try and type in like overwrite func table view and then try and do number of rows, it doesn't auto generate it for me, or at least it generates a bunch of stuff, but not that specific.
I always just search it by this. So if you just search number of rows, which I already have it implemented, you should already have it implemented from last class.
Oh, okay.
So if you already have it implemented, it won't come up.
Gotcha. Okay, that's probably why.
Yeah, we had it implemented from last class. We just changed what the actual return value was based on our fetch results controller.
Okay, I see it here. It's and we change it from task count to fetch control section. That's the part you changed out, right?
Yep, this right here.
Okay, perfect.
Johnny, can you scroll down like maybe a couple more lines on that? Yep, right there. I just missed one thing.
Okay.
Hey, Johnny, can you scroll right back up to that lazy variable?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, come on back. You all know what that sound means.
Hey, Johnny, for some reason I'm getting an error for that fetch request. It says it's not a member of type. I thought it was like a misspelling, but it says not a member of type or of type of task. I'm sorry.
Let's see, do you want to share your screen real quick?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Yeah, so you want to say, yeah, you need to just press enter after where you're calling task.fetch request. So task.fetch, nope. After the open closing parentheses. Looks like you accidentally just backspaced too many. So the fetch request.sort descriptor should be on a different line.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, press enter.
Okay. Oh, is that really it? Oh.
And then
I think you need to move your bracket, right?
well,
Yeah, your bracket.
on line 34, you need to say let fetch request equal fetch request colon.
Right here. Let fetch request
equal. Yeah, and get rid of your colon. Get rid of your colon. And fetch request needs to be of type NS fetch request of type task. So after fetch, yeah, go back to where you're declaring your fetch request, because you want to give it a type. So after fetch request, do colon, and then do NS fetch request. NS fetch request, not fetch results controller, fetch request. Yeah, autocomplete, fetched request, not results.
Sorry.
Requests. Sorry, fetch request. Fetch request. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and then do the the less than sign, like the less than or greater than sign. So the less than. But yeah, so you want those, but you want those, yeah, of type task. And then go ahead and press Command B. Up where you have the fetch request, remove the space before in between fetch request and your type.
Isn't it fetch request sort descriptors with an S? I think mine is.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you just needed to add an S. You didn't need to remove that. But yeah, that's fine. Okay, do a Command B now.
Okay, I think that might.
And declaration table view. Click on the error for me. Title for header and section. Looks like you just like typed that, which generally you don't want to do because that's a lot of typing. So just go to like line 82 where you have nothing. So just press enter and start typing title for header. Title for header, and then just select the title for header, not for footer. Go back. Title for header. That second one, the second initializer.
The header in section?
Yep.
Sweet.
And then, yeah, and then just put that code in there and then remove that. Yeah, you don't ever want to type those data source methods because they're really long. And it's easy to make a mistake, so.
There you go. Thank you, Johnny.
Yep. Okay, let me share my screen here. Okay. All right, so next I want to talk about, well, let's open up the documentation for NS fetched results controller, okay? So this is a controller that you use to manage the results of a core data fetch request and to display data to the user, okay? So there's a bunch of stuff that you should definitely go in and read. Okay, so while table views can be used in several ways, fetch results controllers primarily assist you with a master list view, okay? So that's why it's so nice using fetch results controllers with table views, because that's pretty much how they're built, okay? So using an NS fetch request, we have the fetch request, the manage object context, an optional key path for the section name, and an optional cache. Okay, which is what we've done up to this point. Okay, so what we want to talk about is the controller's delegate. Okay, so if we set a delegate for the fetch results controller, the controller registers to receive change notifications from its managed object context. Okay, so we're going to be creating a connection between the fetch results controller and then the context, which remember is like the scratch pad, so that anytime the context calls save, it communicates those changes to the fetch results controller. So if the context is like, hey, there's new data in core data, the fetch results controller is going to say, hey, I want to know about that and update my table view accordingly, okay? So any change in the context that affects the result set or section information is processed and the results are updated accordingly. The controller notifies the delegate when result objects change location or when sections are modified, which is perfect for us, right? Because if I go into a task and I change the priority to low, medium, or low, normal, or critical, right? I want that cell to be able to move dynamically into its correct section. Okay, so the fetch results controller is going to manage all of that for me. Pretty powerful, right? So use these methods to update the display of the table view. Okay. So let's go ahead then, and I'm going to, at the very end of my file here, I'm going to write an extension on my tasks table view controller. Tasks table view controller. And we're going to conform to NS fetched results controller delegates. Okay. Okay, it doesn't have any required methods because you're not required to register for any of those. But now that we have that, I can uncomment this frc.delegate equals self. Okay. And then I'm actually just going to, I'm going to copy and paste and give you this code and then talk about it. And then I'm going to teach you guys how to save this as a snippet, okay? Because this is boilerplate code for using a fetch results controller, okay? So let me send this here your way. Okay, so go ahead and copy those changes. And I want you to paste them in this extension here. Okay, so these are the delegate methods on NSFetch results controller delegate. Okay, so controller will change content. Okay, and controller did change content. Those are just methods that are sort of saying, hey, like you're about to be updated. Okay, so will change content means, hey, you're about to be updated with some new content. Okay, so we're going to call tableview.begin updates. Okay. And then controller did change content, we're going to call tableview.end update. So we're sort of putting in our table view into like an editing mode so that the fetched results controller can insert items or delete items as needed. Okay. So we're kind of going from this like write only to read only mode. Okay. So next we've got this method called did change section info. Okay, did change section info. Let's see if I can get the, okay. So this notifies the receiver of the addition or removal of a section, okay? So if I remove all of my tasks that are of priority low, I don't want to have a low priority section anymore, right? It doesn't make sense to have a section for something that doesn't have any more objects, okay? So this is a method that notifies the table view of the insertion and the deletion of sections, okay? So you can see here we've got case insert, and we're going to insert sections at a section index with this automatic animation, okay? Same thing with delete is once the fetch results controller has notified, hey, this section no longer exists, then it's going to call to the table view and tell it to delete that section. Okay. So this is for sections. Okay. This is to handle insertions and deletions of sections. Okay. Next we have did change any object at index path. So this is going to be for rows. This is going to manage the insertion, the update, the moving, and the deletion of rows. Okay. So we've got insert, where we say, hey, here's the new index path we want to insert, and then we call insert rows at that new index path. Okay, updating, right? If we want to make any updates, if I change the name of my task, I need to update the row, so I'm going to reload the rows at that index path. Okay, we've got this move, which allows me to, you know, if I change the priority, be able to move that row to a different section if needed. Okay. And then we've got delete, where if I delete it, I want to delete the rows in the table view, okay? So lots of code, and you're like, hey, this is confusing, I don't understand, let's go through it more, which we can do, but this is boilerplate code, okay? You can see I actually still have, if I start typing in FRC, okay, and press enter, look, there's all of that same code. I've created a code snippet of all of this code because you're going to use it pretty much the same way every single time you use a fetch results controller. Okay, so let me talk to you about how to create a code snippet if you've never done it before. Okay, so the code that I just sent you, go ahead and select it. So let's select all of that code up until the controller will change content. Okay, if you right click on it, okay, you can go to this create code snippet. Okay, so you can see I actually have a bunch of code snippets. A lot of these are code snippets for that like already exist in Xcode that are like given to you for free. Okay, fetch results controller is not. So go ahead and call this snippet whatever you want. Say fetch results controller delegate or something. Fetch results controller delegates. Okay. The language is Swift, platform all. Okay, and go ahead and hit done. Okay, I actually already have something called that, but okay. So that's the name of our snippet. Now, if you want to create like a shortcut, okay, for the autocomplete, you can go to edit here, and for this completion, I can say, I'll just say like FRC10 because I'm pretty sure I already have like a million fetch results controller from teaching this lesson. Okay, so the completion is what, like for it to autocomplete, what do you want to have to type in and then press enter? Okay, so I'm gonna do FRC10, hit done here. Okay, and then let me close the snippets. So I'm gonna delete all of this code that's presumably saved in my snippet. Okay, and just start typing FRC10. Okay, so we've got this auto completion thing for a code snippet. I can press enter, boom, done. Okay, questions about snippets?
Sorry, how do you open the snippets thing so you can edit?
Yeah, so if you go to the plus, you can click on the plus icon to create a new snippet. Or what you want to do, what I prefer to do is I prefer to select what I want to be a snippet. Okay, and then right click and go to create code snippet.
How do you actually edit the code within that snippet that you just created?
So in here, how do you edit it?
Like say if I made a mistake and I copied the wrong thing and I want to edit the actual code.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, you can't. Yeah, you can just edit it right inside of the snippet as if it's another editor here. So just click inside of here. But you have to be in sort of this edit mode, right? Actually, you don't even, let's see, edit. Yeah, just make sure you're in edit mode here, and then you can update the code in the snippet.
And do I have to do the right click and do that section, or how do I access this snippet again? They just go through the...
Yeah, so you can add a snippet in one of two ways. We added a completion title so that I can actually just type. So let me go back here.
No, I mean to that little snippet selector that you had right there, that little menu. How'd you access that?
Oh, if you click on the plus icon here, that will open up your... So it might open up to like the object library or the action sheet. This third option here is all of your snippets.
Gotcha, I see. Okay, cool, thank you. And then, because I do have to make an edit on the code, where did you say to stop? Because I copied the whole entire thing.
So you just want to copy the function, the actual like delegate methods.
Oh, okay. No, it's because I thought you stopped at a certain point within the code. That's why I asked. I was like, oh, I copied the whole thing and I made that into a snippet. So I misinterpreted what you meant.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, we just want everything inside of our extension here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I learned 2 things.
Okay, any questions about snippets or about these delegate methods for our fetch results controller?
Not really about the snippets, Johnny, but the little plus button that I just pressed, I was kind of snooping around in there. But are the other sections there also giving you snippets like creating for buttons and so forth like that, like toggles?
Are you talking about this?
Mm-hmm. Is that considered like a snippet of the code? Like it automatically puts it in for you?
Yes, although I've never actually done that to create like a button or anything.
Okay.
But actually, I'm curious about that. If I'm on a new line here. This is Swift UI, so you don't want to use that.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Here we go.
Are all of these? Yeah, that's all Swift UI stuff, so don't use any of that. Until Unit 3, when you guys do Swift UI. Okay, so fetch results controllers, super powerful, right? And it's because of these methods here make it like extra powerful, right? Because they allow us to insert, delete, move, pretty much everything you'd want to do with the table view, okay? And then we have it saved in this nice little snippet that you can access anytime you want to use a fetch results controller, okay? But just remember, you've got this sort of begin editing, end editing, and then we have how do I handle sections, insertions, and deletions of sections, and how do I handle insert, update, move, and delete of different objects, okay, inside of my fetch results controller. Okay, so now that we've got those, let's go back to where we commented out this editing style. Okay, and go ahead and uncomment it. Okay, we no longer have our tasks array here. So let's go ahead and call fetched results controller dot object at index path. Okay. And yeah, actually we didn't even need to comment it out. I don't know why I commented it out. I mean, it wasn't going to work because we hadn't implemented the delegate methods, but that was easy enough to just say that the task equals the fetch results controller's object at index path. Okay, so at this point, let's run it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete my low priority task here. Okay. And we saw that animation that it deleted the row and also deleted the section, right? So that's being handled by the fetch results controller here, right? It called this and it said, hey, we need to delete this section because there are no longer any objects associated with this section, okay? I can also similarly add, new task, priority low, and hit save. And we see that that new section has been added to my table view. Okay, so previously we had the tasks, our computed property tasks that was doing a fetch request every single time we tried calling it. But now the fetch results controller is sort of set up as your backend for all of the stuff that's happening on your context, on your main context, right? So all of the managed objects that are in your context, it's being notified if anything was added or deleted or changed, and then it's updating the table view accordingly.
Hey Johnny, how did you implement the FRC delegate again? Because I think I might have missed that section. It keeps coming up as a non-functional type.
Are you saying like to be able to get your snippet?
No, not the snippet. The line 42, the delegate that we commented out earlier and then re-implemented.
This one right here.
Yes. For some reason, it's giving me an error. I'm just not sure if I missed something.
What does it say?
It says cannot call value of non-function type task table view controller.
Did you make sure in your extension, did you conform to NSFetch results controller delegate?
I believe so. One section. Let's see here. So extension. This says fetch results controller delegate.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yes, I have that.
And if you do a command B, does it fail?
It does. I believe it does. Let me double check my time. Yep, it does fail.
Okay, let's take a real quick look. Share your screen real quick.
Sweet. But this is.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and do a command B. Okay, scroll up for me. Okay.
I think it's the
you don't want the parentheses on self. Remove the 2 parentheses here.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah, the autocomplete.
Sweet.
The autocomplete wanted you to do that, but yeah, you don't want to do that.
Gotcha. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, everybody.
All right, let me bring the screen share back. All right. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Other questions about fetch results controllers? Okay, so the last piece that we're missing that we'll cover for the last half an hour is going to be actually editing tasks, right? Because right now we haven't set up any sort of like segues to go and like update a task. So right now, if we create a task, we can't edit it or do anything with it, okay? So what we're gonna do is let's add a new class here. So we're gonna go to View Controllers, and I'm gonna go to New File, okay? Okay, and then let's go ahead and do Cocoa Touch class because this is gonna be a subclass of UI View Controller. Let's call this Task Detail View Controller. Task Detail View Controller. It's going to be a subclass of UI View Controller. And hit Next. And create. Okay, so we'll come back to this. Let's hop over to our main.storyboard here. Let's create a new view controller. Okay. Let's go down here. UI view controller. Okay. And we're going to connect this to our task cell here. Okay, so let's click. We're going to control drag from our task cell to our detail view here. And this is going to be a show segue. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's set the class on this. So we're going to set this to be our task detail view controller. Cool. Okay. Okay. And we want the UI to pretty much look exactly the same. right? We want it to look like what we have up here, okay? So let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to grab this stack view, okay? So grab the stack view, and then let's option click on the stack view and drag it into our new task detail. Okay, did everyone get that? So option click on your stack view from your create task scene and drag it to your task detail. Okay, let's go ahead and update our title here to say task detail. Okay, and actually I want to change the navigation controller to prefers large titles. So we get this nice little task detail here. And then we'll also need to do the same up here, prefers large titles, if you want the create task to show big and bold. But you don't need to do that if you don't want. I just prefer it. Okay, so with our stack view here, let's go ahead and give it some constraints. So I'm going to click on the square TIE fighter, and we're going to give it 20 on leading, top, and trailing. And let's also constrain it to the margins, and then add 3 constraints. Let's see. Actually, what is this using? Oh, no, we don't want to do the margins. Sorry, my apologies. So if we press Command Z, that should get rid of my constraints here. Okay. Yeah, let's try that again. So square TIE fighter, let's do 20, but not constrained to the margins. For some reason, I thought the above was constrained to margins. So 20 and 20. Add 3 constraints. Okay, now it's saying that it needs a height constraint. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and control drag to my super view, and we're going to do equal heights. Okay.
Do you mind explaining what that does exactly? What it, like equaling height, what that does?
Yeah, so what we're saying is when you drag from one object to the other, you're saying, hey, be equal heights, right? And so if you have 2 objects that don't have any other sort of constraints, then they'll literally be like the same height as each other. Okay, well, our stack view is full of a bunch of objects that already have let's see here. Like that have like intrinsic height values. And so really what the height constraint is creating is, if you click on your stack view, it's actually setting up a proportional height to the super view. And that proportion is actually 0.4. Okay.
Hey, Johnny, can you go over that that part where you dragged, you control dragged from stack views? I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah, so if we're down here, right, it's mad at us saying, hey, you don't, like, we don't have a height. We don't know where this stack view should necessarily be. We don't know how tall it needs to be. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna control drag to just the super view, right, that's gonna contain my stack view. And we're gonna do equal heights, okay? And so in our case here, if I wanted the height ratio between the two to actually be 1-to-1, I can hold down Option, and that would say, hey, this stack view should literally be the same height as the super view. Okay. Well, if I just click it here with equal heights, it's going to give it a height constraint proportionally to the height of the super view. Okay. And that proportional height is, I think, is 40%. This stack view is always going to be 40% of the height of the super view that contains it.
Because I originally kind of dragged it up there before you started putting the margins. On my section, it wouldn't allow me to, like when you were doing the option to do the 1-to-1 ratio, it didn't come up for me for some reason. Is that because I already had it close to where it needed to be?
Were you holding down Option? The 1-to-1?
I was.
Oh, you were, and it wasn't showing the 1-to-1?
It wasn't showing 1-to-1. But was I supposed to hold and click on?
Yeah,
on something?
you hold and click if you want the 1-to-1, but we don't want the 1-to-1. I was just showing that.
Good to go. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, Clayton, does that make sense what that height is doing?
Yeah, I understand now because of the multiplier setting it to be 40%, but it didn't make sense originally because when I thought that you were setting it to be equal height with the super view, why isn't it, stretching the stack view to be?
Yeah, and I actually thought, to be honest, I thought that when you set the equal heights, I didn't think that it did it proportionally. I didn't realize that they had a 1-to-1 ratio there, but yeah, I guess that's how they do it, is that they set it proportionally, and then you can adjust that multiplier later. Okay. Yes, perfect. Okay, so we've got our task detail view controller. So let's go ahead and let's start setting up our different outlets and whatnot. Okay, so I'm going to open up my task detail view controller here in the assistant editor. Okay, and we need to create outlets for our name text field. Okay, so let's well, actually, I'm going to create a new marker here. Mark outlets. Okay, let's drag from our name. Okay, and again, you want to make sure that this is the text field, not the stack view. We're going to call this name text field. Okay. Let's drag from our complete button. Okay. Okay, complete button. Okay, and then we want to do one from our priority control. Okay, so we'll call this priority control. And then lastly, our notes text view. Notes text view. Okay, and then we want to create one IB action. We're not going to need this marker for our navigation here. I'm going to create a mark for actions. And let's control drag from our complete here. And call this toggle complete. And the sender type is going to be UI button. And then press connect. Okay, so those 4 outlets and 1 IB action are the things that we're going to need. Okay, we all good with our outlets and actions? Any questions? Okay, so let's create a new marker here for properties, okay? And we know that we're gonna want to have a task, right? When we tap on a cell, we want to pass that task over to this detail view, like we've done since, day one, right? And so we're gonna say we have a task object, type task, it's gonna be optional, okay? And we're also gonna create a property for was edited, okay? I want to track if my task has been edited at all. Okay, if it has been edited, then I want to resave it. If it hasn't, then there's no point in saving any of those changes. Okay. Okay. So like we always do, we're going to have a method to update our views. Okay. Let's go ahead and create a private function here called update views. And we just want to update all of our text fields and everything with information from the task that's been passed in. So we're going to say name text field dot text is equal to task dot name. Okay. And then we also want to make sure that we also want to keep track of whether we're currently editing. Or not. Okay. Okay. So we want name text field dot is enabled, or user interaction is enabled, right? User interaction enabled is equal to is editing. Okay, so UI view controller actually has a property on it called is editing. Okay, which we'll talk about in a minute. Okay, so let's do the same thing for our notes text view. We'll set its text equal to our task dot notes. Okay, and we'll do our notes text view dot is user interaction enabled is equal to is editing. Okay, our complete button dot set image. Okay, well, we want the image to be based on whether the task is complete. So we're going to check task dot complete, otherwise false, right? Because that's optional. So if the task has been complete, then we want to return a UI image with system name, check mark, circle, fill. Or if it's false, we want to do UI image with system name, circle. For control state dot normal. Okay, so we've set our name text field, we've set our notes text view, we've set our complete button. Okay, now we need to set our priority control, right? So let's go ahead and we're going to say, okay, well, we're going to have a priority here of type task priority. Okay, but that's going to be based on information that we get from the task. Okay, so we're going to say if let task priority is equal to task dot priority. Priority equals task priority. We're going to initialize a task priority with the raw value from our task priority. Otherwise, we'll just give it a default value of normal. Priority equals dot normal. Yeah, we just want to set the segmented picker to normal. Okay, so now we'll access our priority control here. Dot selected segment index is going to be equal to task priority dot all cases dot first index of our priority. otherwise 1. There's a lot of optionality here that we have to handle, unfortunately. Okay. Okay, and then we also want user interaction enabled. So priority control dot is user interaction enabled. It's going to be equal to is editing. Okay, and I'll Slack you this update views method in case you don't have it yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and call update views inside of viewDidLoad load here. Update views. Okay, so another difference, another thing that we want to add in the case where we're editing a task is we want to have a little bar button item at the top right. Okay, well, UI View Controller actually has that functionality built into it. Okay, so inside of viewDidLoad load, let's say navigation item dot right bar button item is equal to edit button item. Okay, so that's just like a built-in control that toggles the Boolean is editing, true or false. And it also changes from edit to done or whatnot. It toggles between the two button states. Okay, so that's a built-in button type on UI View Controller. Okay, so I'm going to borrow a few things just to make things easier, is because a lot of this is going to work similar to our create task. Okay, so let's go over to our create task view controller, just so that we don't have to recreate the wheel here. Okay, and let's grab our, let's grab this code and toggle complete. Okay, go back to task detail. And inside of toggle complete, yeah, we'll make a few changes here. Okay, so if a user has tapped on the, I mostly just wanted this, the set image stuff. So anyway, let's go ahead, and if the user makes a change to whether something has been complete, we're going to mark was edited equal to true. Okay, and then we're going to mark task.complete.toggle. Okay, and then we want to set our image accordingly based on the task's completion. Sorry, I realize I did that in like a really backwards order. So I'm going to send this to you. So that's our toggle complete method. What's going on? Oh.
Hey, Johnny, I hate to ask, I just got kicked. Would you be able to go over that? I just copied the snippet, but I missed almost everything you were just talking a second ago.
The toggle complete code?
Yeah, can you go over that? I got kicked out way before you started talking about that.
Oh, yeah, so the toggle complete method is what happens when we tap on the little complete button. And so when we've tapped that, it means that a change has been made to our task, right? And so we're going to set was edited equal to true, which we're going to use that property later. And then we're going to set the task's completion. We're going to toggle that as well. So task.complete.toggle. And then we also want to update our image with either the just empty circle or with the circle checkmark fill or checkmark circle fill to show like whether the task has been complete or not. Okay. So for the sake of time, I wish we had more time. I'm going to send you some more stuff. I'll send you a lot more stuff, actually. Sheesh. Okay, so I'm going to send you this life cycle method, and then we'll go through it together. Okay. I'd love to type it all with you, but we're running out of time. So let's go ahead and paste that after view did load. Okay, and then you may need to update to fix any errors. You just want to make sure that like the property names match what you created as your outlets. Okay, but the point of this is that we don't have like a save button necessarily. We have a done button to say that like we're done editing, so we can toggle out of editing. But what we want to do is if the user hits the back button, we want to make changes if was edited is equal to true, right? So we're going to say, hey, if the user has made changes, but they're now hitting the back button, like the view is just about to disappear, then let's go ahead and harvest. What's the name? What notes do we have? And we're going to set task.name and the notes and the priority. Okay, and then we're going to call save. Okay, so we're tracking if the user makes any changes, we want to track those with this was edited bool. And if they've made changes, then we want to call save on the context. Okay. So that's what that method does. Okay, we're also going to have this method here. Again, I'm sorry that I have to just copy and paste these. It's kind of boring. Okay, so let's paste this after view will disappear. We're overriding what it means to be like in edit mode on our view controller. Okay, so we're calling set editing on our super class. Okay, and then we're checking if editing. Okay, then we're going to set was edited equal to true. So as soon as we go into the edit mode, like using our bar button, then we're setting was edited equal to true. So now any changes that we make are going to be saved to the context. Okay, and then we're going to, once we're in edit mode, then we want to change the interaction enabled for all of our items so that we can actually make changes to them, right? So we're going to say name text field is user interaction enabled is equal to editing, and so on and so forth.
Hey, Johnny, what did you call the one before? What functionality would that one have? The view did disappear? Is that what it is?
Will disappear.
Will disappear. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So last thing that we need to do is we haven't set up our segue yet to be able to pass our task through. So let's go to our main.storyboard and we're going to click on our segue here. I'm going to open up my attribute inspector and we're going to say to task detail, And then inside of my table view controller, let's go ahead and, I had you delete it, but we actually need it. So the prepare for segue, if you just start typing prepare for segue, it'll come up. And again, for the sake of time, let me just give you the code. Sheesh. Okay. So our prepare for segue, and I'm fine giving you all of this code because these aren't part of like our learning objectives. We've already covered our learning objectives. This is all just like to help us make an actual like cool app, an actual functional app. So a lot of this stuff, I'm just going over the code, but you should spend more time looking at it, but it's nothing new. Like we're not learning anything new from it necessarily, okay? So prepare for segue. Remember, we're checking our identifier, which this should be to task detail. Name it whatever yours is, okay, to task detail. And then we're checking the segue's destination to see if it's a detail view controller. If it is, then we're going to pass the detail view controller's task over from our fetch results controller. Okay. So if I run it, okay, so I've got this new task here. I'm going to click on it. Okay. And we see that it has information about the task, right? So it's test, complete, priority, etc. I can't click on anything until I go into edit mode here, and then I can make changes. Okay, so I can set this to critical, hit done, and go back to tasks. And is this the task I was on? Yeah, the test one here. Okay, so I could go to new task here, edit, we can move that to critical and hit done, and go back to tasks, and it's now part of the critical section. Okay, so again, whenever I make any changes, as soon as I click on this edit here, our was edited property is now equal to true. So now any changes that I make here are going to be saved as soon as the view disappears. All right, so I make a change here, test one. Okay, as soon as I hit this back button, that's going to call my view will disappear method, which is going to save my task. Okay, and I'm out of time now. I'm going to stay after and help anyone that needs it, but I want to be respectful to those of you, especially on the East Coast, who stay up really late to be in class with us. So that's everything that I have for you tonight. So remember, key takeaways. Up here. Wow, I've sent you a lot of code. Okay, so being able to run a lightweight migration, man, that feels like we did that yesterday. Can you believe we did that tonight? We've done so much since we did that migration. Okay, so use a lightweight migration to migrate an older core data store to a newer version. Okay, and use an NS fetch results controller to create a table view populated with core data objects. And then we actually didn't talk about predicates tonight, so those are going to be the two that we focused on. We'll talk about predicates later. So those are the key takeaways. If you feel good about those, you feel pretty good about the project, then you're free to go. I'll send you a completed version of this project because we are going to use this on Monday. Okay, and you guys should have seen the announcement. Monday is it's sort of a day off. It's like a day that you cannot come and we won't count it against you, but I still will be teaching a lecture, okay? But you guys, I'm not saying that you should be here. I'm not trying to pressure or anything. I am holding a lecture for those of you who don't feel like they need some time off, but like we do want to provide that opportunity to some of you who want to take some time off or who want to, it's kind of crazy times right now, right? So we do have that Monday available for you to not come. If you don't want to and you want to take the day off, that's cool. I'm happy. But you are still responsible for watching the lecture at some point before Tuesday, right? So that you can actually work on your homework. So I'll be here on Monday teaching the lecture. You're welcome to come if you want. If you don't come, I won't be offended. I'll be happy that you're taking a break. But you are responsible for watching the lecture, okay? So be sure to do that if you don't come. Otherwise, we'll see you on Monday. And like I said, I'll send you a completed version of the project, okay? So for those of you who are good, you're free to go. We'll see you on Monday or Wednesday, whatever you decide. And then I'll stay after to answer any questions or help you guys out, so.
Mine isn't showing the data is not filling on the detail screen when I click on a task.
Okay. Did you make sure, because the code that I pasted, the segue identifier, did you make sure that those match between what you have in your storyboard and?
No, I didn't make sure.
Yeah, because I called mine to task detail, but the code the snippet that I pasted to you has show task detail, so it was a different segue identifier.
Is that in the attributes inspector or?
Yeah, so if you click on the segue, click on your detail segue here, and then go to your attribute inspector, this right here, this identifier.
Okay. That's probably what I was missing. Yeah, that works now.
Cool.
Thank you.
Great.
Hey Johnny, can I see your action on the task detail view controller? I think I didn't write the code right.
This one, the IV action.
Yes.
I'm sorry, did I did something wrong, or when you're changing the name of the task, should that update the notes itself?
And change the name of the task. Should I update the notes?
Yeah.
No, those are completely separate things.
So my does update the notes when I go back.
Yours updates the notes when you go back.
Literally the same as the name of the task.
Yeah, so that probably means, are you good on this, Sammy? Did you get all that? Can I scroll around?
Yeah, you can scroll around. I may have to have you help me on that one, John, just because for some reason it's wrong, or it just keeps giving me error.
Okay. Here, Bowden, let's take a look at your screen. Let me see what's going on.
All right, Johnny, I'm jumping off. I'll be here on Monday, so we'll catch you then. Have a good weekend.
Well, we'll see you, Ian. You too.
How do I share the screen?
Nope. I don't see it.
No, how do I share it?
Oh, how do you share?
There's a button.
Yeah, there's a little green button at the bottom that says share screen. Wait, did I stop my share? I'm not sharing anymore, right?
Yeah, you stopped yours, John.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so if you hover over the Zoom window, at the bottom toolbar, there's a button that says share screen. And then you have to select which of your screens you want to share if you have multiple screens.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's late.
No, you're good.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so show me the behavior you're seeing.
So basically what I took to edit it, and I hit done, and then I go back, and then when I go it, so it updates right here, see?
Okay. Yeah, so go to your update views method. And on line 78, yeah, set that to notes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Johnny, mine keeps crashing whenever I try to go to edit anything. Like, I just click on the name to go over to the next the detail view controller. It crashes the app, and it goes back. The breakpoint goes to the app delegate for some reason.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen real quick? Sammy, I haven't forgotten about you. We'll come back to you.
Oh, it's all good. Mine, I'm hoping it's just simple. Everybody else is better. It's more priority.
Okay.
This is a big
So yeah, so this class is not key value code compliant for notes label. So my guess is when you
Oh, yeah, okay.
when you copied your stack view, it probably copied some of the outlets with it. So you want to make sure that you disconnect any of the old outlets.
How do you prevent that from happening?
Yeah, there you
we
go. I'm not sure why it just kept
Thanks,
one.
sir.
That's weird. Yeah, there's not really a way to prevent it. I'm actually surprised myself that the outlets didn't persist. I would have expected to have to remove them, but I double checked before I ran my code to see if the outlets were still there, and they weren't. I'm not really sure how to prevent it. And then in Josh's case, it kept one of them, which also doesn't make a lot of sense. So I don't really know.
I think the notes label is actually my fault, not yours.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. All right, Sammy, you want to share your screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So you just need to put a space after your parenthesis, after where it says false. After that
Yes.
closing parenthesis, put a space. No, after the parenthesis.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Space.
Oh man, is that really just it?
Command V. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I just did it. It came. Let me run it. See if everything's good. Oh, it's always the little things. Thank you, Johnny.
Yeah.
I have something.
What's up?
My app works. It's just there's a little quirk with it. If I have like one of each task priority, it goes critical, high, low, and then normal. It doesn't rank normal higher.
Okay, so look at your sort descriptor. Okay, what's the sort descriptor that we have set?
Priority.
Okay, and what's the type on priority?
True.
No, the type for priority for a priority for our priority attribute. What is the type?
Maybe I'm missing something. I didn't put anything other than priority.
No. So I'm saying, like in core data, when you give a task a priority, what is the type on that priority?
Oh, it should be a string, right?
Okay. So when you want to sort by a string in ascending or descending order, how is that sorting it?
Alphabetically.
So that's what.
So there isn't any way around it.
With the way that we set it up, no. We'd have to do something a little bit deeper to like actually set up like the ordering system of priorities. But for our sort descriptor, when we're saying sort by priority in ascending order, it's taking the type, which is of type string, and saying, well, the only way I know how to sort this is alphabetically.
Sure. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Johnny, I got a fatal error on mine. So I try to look at the button layout, but I just don't know if that is wrong. And I'm looking at the fatal error kind of like description, and there's something about unwrapping an optional value file.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen with me?
And Johnny, when you're reading this, I guess this section here is where do I kind of like read? How should I read it? Like where do I expect to find the error?
Yeah, usually where the fatal error line is, you read that, and then I'd read the next line as well. It says fatal error unexpectedly found nil while implicitly unwrapping an optional value. Create task. So something in your create task view controller. So let's go.
It says it's on line 25.
Task view control or your. Oh, okay. Here it is. So it's saying that name text field is nil at this point. Did it crash when you hit the create or the add new task?
No, it just crashed as soon as I ran it. So.
See, rerun it for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. No, I did do that as soon as I did this.
Okay. Yes. So that is actually I wouldn't expect that. Text field. Your name text field is connected. Calling superview to load.
There was one odd thing I did, Johnny, and I really don't know how I ended up getting on there, but there was a section when I did have, I think, my main storyboard open. I'm not sure if that has any relevance to it, but it was something like, I don't know what button I clicked, but I was hitting tab just to go and to enter the new code, and whatever I erased there, I just kind of ignored it when my own way. So I'm not sure if that has to do anything with the actual like storyboard. Because there is this section here that's thrown off, but I'm not sure if this has anything to do with it, like a height 0 for table view cell.
No, that's just Xcode junk. You don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
So go to your create story, or yeah, let's go to your main.storyboard, and let's go to the create task view controller. So up, scroll up.
Oh wow. It's gone.
Oh, yeah, you don't, yeah, your text, yeah, you must have accidentally dragged your stack view.
Was I supposed to hit option?
Yeah,
drag?
copy
Oh.
Yeah, you gotta leave option held down until you let go of the
Yep.
mouse button.
Because I did that, do I have to reconnect all my LB outlooks or an action?
Yeah, but I can just send you a completed version of the project. It's fine.
Okay. I'll try and work on this so I can learn more of my mistakes. But thank you guys.
Yep.
It's been a treat.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it if you were moving it from one view controller to another, if it copied it instead of moved it. But yeah, the default behavior is to move it, so you have to hold down option.
Yeah, I had a feeling I should have done that, but I'm like, nah, it's gonna just drop it in. It's not gonna do that. But no, sure enough, it did.
Yeah, I'll send you a completed version, so you can just use that for reference or whatnot.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, sounds good. Well, we will plan on seeing you all on either Monday or Wednesday, depending on what you decide. But yeah, good luck on your homework, and let me know if you have any questions, all right?
Take care. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Johnny.
See you guys.